Leo was a depressed hero who got sold out by humans because he was too overpowered. Betrayed, he decides to serve the Demon Queen instead. But when she refuses, he begins to clap her freaky generals every night to convince her he is a Giga Chad. A year ago, the demon army arrived in the human realm under Demon Queen Echidna's leadership and started bullying humans. Then, one day the hero Leo decided to pull a solo leveling on the entire demon army like it was easy mode. Afterwards, Leo battled against Echidna, who had the form of a Power Rangers Megazord, and she proved to be a tough opponent for him. However, he managed to shatter the crystal on her forehead, causing her to transform into her humanoid form, allowing him to realize that she was a baddie. After the battle, he returned to his hometown, but instead of cheering him on like a hero, they protested against him with flyers that defamed him, even sending assassins to unalive him. It was at that moment he regretted saving humans, only for them to turn on him, so he planned to join the Demon Lord army and destroy the world before they destroyed him. He spent the next few months traveling to the demon realm to join their troops, but when he saw the damage he had caused to the Demon Lord castle, he wore literal rags as a disguise till he appeared before Echidna and her 4 great generals in the throne room. There, he boldly took off his disguise to reveal that he's the hero that clapped them into their pitiful situation, but he still wanted to join their army in order to solve their problems. However, Echidna responded by blasting flame attacks at him, which roasted his trashy disguise as well as the documents he showed her during his sales pitch. But her generals have developed deep respect for Leo because he bested them and their queen in battle in the previous war. So they agree to listen to his proposal behind Echidna's back. Back then, the first general he battled against was a brute named Edwald, whose body was covered in hard scales thanks to his mom's drunken affair with a dragon. After a bit of a struggle, Leo outwitted the low-quality Hulk by blasting a racing gun directly at his face. The next general he tangoed with was an emo assassin named Melnes, who thought he could be Oliver Queen by simply wearing a Temu hood cosplay and jumping around the battlefield like a monkey, but Leo destroyed him as well the entire building with a single spell. Up next, he was supposed to fight against a beast general named Lily, but she turned out to be a pea-brain lowly with amnesia, so he rizzed her up instead. The final general Leo faced off against was a powerful 4-eyed sorceress named Shutina, and he checkmated her by simply casting an anti-magic barrier which made her more worthless than Sakura, causing her to retreat. Back in the present, he told them about how the humans betrayed him and how he wanted to get his revenge by helping Echidna rebuild her army in order to destroy them. Hearing this, Shutina decided to put him through a 1-month trial period to evaluate his worthiness. Shutina also told him to use magic to disguise himself at all times to prevent Echidna from figuring out his identity, and she promised that they'd convince Echidna to officially take him in if he does good work during this trial period. Later that evening, Leo walked into the empty throne room, and he remembered how Echidna ordered her demons not to unalive humans during the war. He made it his goal to ask her why she chose to spare humanity and also why she remained in the human realm despite hating it so much. The next morning, Leo woke up cheerful despite the millions of documents on his table because he was determined to show his worth during his 1-month training period. After using magic to unlock his door, he tried to wake up Shutina, who had her plots on display in her sleeping gear. But she refused to wake up, so he used a voice change spell to transform his voice into Echidna's. Using this voice, he commanded her to give a status report of all the new job applicants, and hearing this, she immediately jumped out of bed before informing him with her head down that they hadn't been able to process the enormous amounts of applications they received. Leo switched to his original voice as he continued the interrogation, and the idiot sorceress timidly promised to have a list of interview candidates by the next day. He brought up the fact that she's been missing sleep, and she explained that it's because she's been lacking in her duties. He advised her to delegate tasks to her subordinates since she can't do everything by herself, and she completely agreed with him. She eventually looked up and saw that she was talking to the doofus hero and not her queen, so she started blasting ice magic attacks at him. The rumbling from Shutina's room was so loud that it woke Echidna up, and the queen started to wonder if Shutina was dreaming of being in a Pokemon battle. Afterwards, Leo was sweeping up the rubble when Shutina started yelling while blasting him with ice attacks again. Apparently, the demon army was suffering from severe understaffing because Leo's highly destructive attack made most of the top demon soldiers return to the demon world to recover from their injuries. As a result of this, their duties were passed to the 4 generals, and Shutina ended up getting most of the work because she was the only one with enough brain cells to do it properly. Because of the fact that Echidna wanted her demon army to be reformed as soon as possible. Shutina had been overworking herself to death, and this was why the ice attacks she was spamming at Leo felt weaker than usual. Shutina started panting, and Leo playfully told her to be nicer to him since he was only trying to help her with her work. When she brought up the fact that he barged into her room while she was sleeping, he reminded her of the fact that she's a succubus, and she got so embarrassed that she blasted him with another huge ice spell. A while later, Shutina got properly dressed and Leo went through the list of tasks which she was assigned before asking her to delegate some of the tasks to her colleagues. Shutina argued that she couldn't do anything about it because she didn't have any subordinates she could trust, and Leo reluctantly agreed with her. Leo saw that the last task on the list was replenishing the mana receptors, so he started brainstorming about it. He knew that a number of facilities in the castle tapped into mana from the reactors, and that only the creator of the receptors could replenish them with mana. This means that the mana receptors created by Shutina can only be replenished by Shutina herself, and it would be destroyed if anyone with a different mana wavelength tried to help. Leo then decided that he'd be the one to take care of replenishing Shutina's mana receptors, and she thanked him because it was causing her quite a headache. She playfully asked her how she thought he'd do it, and she replied that he planned to mimic her mana wavelength with a spell called Harmonize. She informed him that she had only 4 mana receptors out of the hundreds in the castle, and said they only had to be replenished every few days. However, Leo said he'd have it done in 2 hours and 30 minutes, and she pointed out that she could do it in less than an hour. So he promised her that he'd do it in a way that would wow her so much that she'd let him raid her dungeon. Leo then used a spell to cover himself in dark armor, and he asked Shutina if he could assume the title of Assistant to the Demon Generals, to which she agreed. He started asking her for her opinions on the goofy codenames he cooked up, but Shutina chased him away to get started on his task. When he came out of the room, he saw a strange elven girl named Dianette, who ran away immediately she saw him. A while later, Leo returned to Shutina's room and told her that he'd handled everything. She expressed her doubts by pointing out that it had only been 30 minutes, but he assured her that he'd taken care of everything. Shutina tried to hand him another task, but he said he was exhausted because it had been a while since he last adjusted his mana wavelength. He then created a magic orb which would allow him to watch her work while he rested, while Shutina did the paperwork. Leo was having the time of his life on the couch, and when she confronted him about it, he said he needed more resting time to replenish his mana. She tried to drag him back to work, but Gigachad Boy used a gravity spell to make himself as heavy as the colossal titan. Leo continued loafing around until Shutina angrily approached him again and attempted to smite him using her Bankai until they were interrupted by a knock on the door. Dianette entered the room and Leo commended her for completing the task he gave her before telling her to call him the Dark Knight Onyx. He then told her to give a report on the reactor maintenance, and she informed him that the talisman he gave her worked without incident. Shutina was shocked, so Dianette informed her that the talisman was durable enough for continued use, and then she asked her if they could take over the process of replenishing mana reactors. Leo then explained how he created a talisman using a special stone which he filled with Shutina's magic wavelength and gave it to Dianette so that she would be able to replenish the mana. Dianette then informed them that she found 3 other people to split the job with, and Leo officially put the 4 of them in charge of that specific task. Afterwards, Dianette admitted that she's been secretly worrying for Shutina, and this moved the Sorcerer Queen to tears. After Dianette left, Leo gave Shutina a lecture about how labor was best divided among comrades before advising her to trust her subordinates. Leo then gave her a list of tasks he marked out and told her to delegate it to her subordinates. Shutina thanked him for helping her out despite how rude she was to him earlier on, and the nonchalant hero said it was nothing. She sent him off with a cheerful smile, but the goofball ruined the mood by trying to bait her into doing bedroom yoga dances with him.
Yeah, boy.
So she blasted him away. Later that night, Shutina met up with Leo and informed him that Lily had been sent off on an important logistical mission which the brain-dead Loli was treating like playtime. Leo chose to enjoy a little vacation in one of the tropical islands on the Largo Sea, but his sweet time didn't last long because Lily showed up and started a race with her subordinates on the island. Back when Shutina informed Leo that Lily was going to Largo for the mission, Leo asked why she was going that far out. So Shutina explained that the demon army and the people of Largo have a strong alliance. Leo then pointed out that Largo was a town of dragon folk, and he brought up how 3,000 years ago, the demon king Belial led an attack on the human realm. After his defeat, humans and demons started living peacefully among each other, and the dragon folk did the same until the humans started aggressively persecuting them, causing them to move over to Largo. Shutina explained that it was because of this bad history with humanity that the people of Largo welcomed Echidna's invasion with open arms, and it was their help that enabled her to fight against humanity for so long. Shutina pointed out that Largo is the demon army's lifeline, and then she instructed Leo to ensure that their shipment arrived safely because the castle was running low on food and equipment. She showed him Lily's so-called reports, which looked like pages torn out of a spoiled brat's color book, while informing him that the idiot Loli usually takes too long to complete her missions despite having sufficient staff for it. Leo asked why she was sending him, and not Edwald, who's a demonfolk from Largo, and Shutina replied that they can't send him because they need him to protect the castle. She also pointed out that Lily wouldn't learn anything if Edwald does all the work, and Leo figured out that he was basically being sent to babysit Lily during the mission. Leo accepted the task, and just when Shutina was about to give him details on how to get to Largo, he interrupted her by saying some RIZZ-ful words which got her so flustered that she started blasting him icicles again. Back in the present, Leo chased after Lily as she ran around with her gang, and after the race, she commended her men for doing a great job. Leo asked Lily to stop playing around, and she told him they weren't just playing around, but rather doing a race to see who would gather up supplies the fastest. One of her men informed her that they still had a lot to transport, but she announced that they were done for the day and told them to get some rest. A while later, Leo was chilling by the shore and Lily showed up with a coconut, which she started feeding him. However, Leo was worried that they wouldn't finish transporting what they had at the rate they were going because the island was still filled to the brim with supplies which they had to transport through a portal to the castle. He knew that the job would only take a day or two if the right people were assigned to handle specific tasks, and Lily interrupted his brainstorming by handing him some carrots. Some demons asked Lily who Leo was, and the dimwit was about to spill the beans before Leo covered her mouth while telling them that he's the Dark Knight Onyx. A while later, Leo tried to get some demons to repair some damaged parts, but they told him they can't change their tasks without getting a sign-off from their boss Lily. When Leo saw that Lily was too busy munching on some carrots, he realized how cooked they were. Later that evening, Leo was feeling down about the hopeless situation they were in, especially since the villagers of the Largo had been lodging complaints about their reckless methods. He felt that they could lose the dragon folk and the logistics center if it continued that way, and once again, Lily showed up to interrupt his thinking. Noticing his foul mood, the idiot Loli presumed that he was feeling ill, so she rushed out to get medicine. Meanwhile, a demon informed Shutina that their cargo was yet to arrive, and after he left, Melnice told her that Lily was too dumb to handle such an important task. However, Shutina reminded him that Lily was one of the 4 demon generals, and then brought up a time after the war when Lily cheered up Echidna, who was feeling worthless after losing to Leo. Back on the island, Leo saw Lily desperately searching that island for medicine for him, and he started to think that she'd be better off putting that energy into the job when a light bulb appeared on his head. Some minutes later, Lily walked back into the tent after finding some medicine and met Leo looking even more constipated than usual. Leo told her he was bitten by a snake as part of his plan to help Lily mature, and she immediately started crying. He said it was the end of the road for him, but she said she didn't want him to die and suggested taking him to get healed by Shutina. However, Leo said she couldn't do that because the portal was broken, and he knew there was only one way to heal him since none of the bums in Largo knew healing magic. Lily then suggested gathering some medicinal herbs, and this was exactly what Leo had planned. After she left, he healed himself using cleanse magic and teleported the snake away before sending his orb eye to follow her. Leo was happy because he'd set up trails on the road to the mountains, which would require her to manage her team correctly in order to get through them. Lily eventually transformed into a huge white wolf, which Leo identified as the divine wolf, Fenrir, which was a protective deity in Lily's home on the continent of Urkia. She eventually reached the first trial, which was a huge border that Leo made impenetrable to physical attacks. Leo was confident that she'd need teamwork to get through it, but Miss Twilight stunned him by bursting through it with sheer force. Lily then arrived at the second trial, which is a collection of slimes which held her down, and once again she exceeded Bro's expectations by forcing her way through. The third trail was a huge crevasse which Leo created in her path, and Leo came by disguised as an ugly merchant to watch her struggle. When he saw that Lily was struggling to think up a solution, he sang a goofy song about the power of friendship, which made her run back to get some help. However, Lily ended up swimming through the river underneath before climbing to the other side, and she claimed it was her comrades who advised her to do so. Lily breezed through the other trails, and afterwards, she met up with Leo, who commended her for her efforts. She then showed him a drawing she made where everyone was working together and said it was his merchant persona that helped her figure out that she was too dumb to do things herself. When they returned from the trip, Leo told Shutina all about Lily's character development, and she informed him that Queen Echidna had requested an audience with Dark Knight Onyx immediately. Some time ago, Leo was sent from a helicopter to take on some demons that were terrorizing the people of a particular city, and as he dismantled these demons, the people stared at him with fear in their eyes. However, he continued to mercilessly destroy the demons because he only cared about fulfilling the role he was created for, which was to protect humanity. Leo woke up in the present, and he couldn't believe he was having another nightmare about his sad past. He remembered when Shutina told him about Echidna's summon, and back then, he worried that she'd found out about their schemes, so Shutina calmed him down by guessing that Echidna only wanted him to officially introduce himself to her. Shutina also confessed that she was the one who brought up Onyx to Echidna by telling her that their recent progress was thanks to him, and Leo rightfully called her an idiot for it. Leo knew that Echidna was both highly skilled at swordsmanship and magic, which meant that she might be able to see through his disguise, and Shutina told him to call her immediately the queen finds out who he is. However, Leo said he'd handle it himself, and he put on his armor before telling her to pretend like she knew nothing. He eventually walked to the throne room, and Echidna immediately started glazing him for his amazing deeds, causing him to realize that she hadn't figured out who he was. She then offered him a seat at her table, which was filled with food, and Bro was shocked because he'd never been on a date with a demon baddie before. The two of them ate and drank cheerfully, but all that was on Leo's mind was how he needed to get out of there as soon as possible so that Echidna wouldn't unmask him. Eventually, Echidna asked him to remove his mask, and he tried to talk his way out of it, but she claimed that she wanted to talk to him face to face before walking over to him to remove the mask. As she pulled off the mask, Leo swiftly used magic to transform his face into a similar but paler appearance, and Echidna was pleased by his looks. Leo knew he looked uglier than a troll, so he thanked the heavens that Echidna was drunk, and she soon started eating again while gleefully chatting with him. Bro knew he had the conversation skills of a doorknob, so he decided to start filling up her glass with wine like a butler with the intention of getting her wasted so that the event would end. After about 200 glasses, Echidna seemed like she'd reached her limit, but before Bro could take a victory lap, she took things to the next level by drinking straight from the glass. Meanwhile, Shutina was in her office worrying that the dumb hero was going to mess things up with Echidna, and when Lily showed up, she tried to act like nothing was going on. Back at the dinner table, Leo decided to switch to plan B, and he did so by pointing out that the sausage they were eating was made using special spices from Largo. Echidna said she'd barely been able to enjoy extravagant meals like the one they were having due to the fact that they were lacking spices, and then she praised Lily for handling her job well. Leo noticed that Echidna's smile looked just as innocent as a normal girl's smile, and apparently he initiated this food talk with her because he was the one who made the sausages they were eating using Gordon Ramsay's secret recipe. When he told Echidna he made the food, she started glazing him for it, but then she switched gears by asking him why he always had his helmet on. Leo lied that he'd been cursed by the goddess Tiana and said he could only show his face to others for a limited amount of time. Echidna asked if he'd be alright since he hadn't been wearing his helmet for a long time, and he went into simp mode by claiming that he was glad to risk his life if it meant spending time with his queen. She got rizzed up instantly, and Bro was pleased because his plan to escape their date by setting up a time limit was going smoothly. However, Echidna forgot all about everything he just told her as she started pushing him to drink more with her L until the end of the night. Meanwhile, Shutina was having an argument with Lily when Dianette came by with an urgent message for them. At the dinner table, Echidna thanked Leo for assisting both Shutina and Lily with their duties, and she confessed that she arranged that feast as a way of appreciating his efforts. Echidna then claimed that she'd welcome all who intend to donate their skills to her cause, so Leo asked why she didn't welcome the hero when he opted to join her side. Immediately she heard his name. She started lashing out while claiming that he's the last person she'd want in her demon army because he'd destroy them from the inside out. Leo thought it was ironic because the very hero she was bad-mouthing was the one making things better for her kingdom, and then she went on to whine about how the hero stopped her from obtaining the Philosopher's Stone. The Philosopher's Stone is a sacred treasure which, according to rumors, was used in founding the capital, and it could do several amazing things including making someone immortal. However, Leo knew that these rumors were false because he'd used it before and found out that it didn't have any special abilities at all. The moronic queen continued to rant about her failed attempt at getting the stone, and she eventually admitted she started the war with humanity not for conquest, but rather to get the stone. Leo then asked what she intended to do with the Philosopher's Stone because he needed to know why she was still in the human world rebuilding her army instead of returning to her realm, and in response, she asked him to follow her. She took him to the balcony where she revealed that the demon world was a vast wasteland which had no sun or vegetation, and the demons there fought each other over the resources that remained. Echidna said she wished to transform her homeland into a utopia using the Philosopher's Stone, and Leo was stunned by the fact that she was fighting humanity to better the lives of her people. Leo then brought up the fact that she forbade her demons from unaliving humans, and she said she couldn't bring herself to fully play the role of the villain because she knew humans were simply trying to defend their home like she was. She then claimed that she didn't hold any grudges against the hero because she knew that it was his job to defend humanity, and this made Leo realize that she was a kind ruler who cared about her people. Echidna then asked Leo about his goals, and he was about to tell her his secret identity before Shutina and Lily showed up to inform them that the other two generals had both given up on their respective missions. One evening, Leo met Melnies chilling by the side of a river and asked him what was bothering him. Back when Leo got the letters about the Melnies and Edwald, he was stunned when he saw that the Emo assassin wrote that the rest of the gang shouldn't come looking for him because he was going on a journey to find the One Piece. And even more stunned when he saw that Edwald said he'd commit seppuku for failing to properly train his troops in the art of gooning. Leo said he'd go after Melnies while Echidna offered to handle Edward's situation herself. However, Echidna started stumbling thanks to the millions of drinks she had, and her lady generals worried for her, but she quickly sobered up by spitting some fire from her mouth. Afterwards, Leo rushed to find Melnies in his dark armor, and he got to a spot where Melnies started attacking him. He tried to explain that he was Leo, but Melnies wouldn't even give him time to speak, so he transformed into his regular form. causing Melniz to pause his attacks. Back in the present, Leo asked Melniz why he used a lazy excuse like going on a journey, and Melniz replied that it was the truth. However, Leo said a general can't just go on a journey like that because losing him would make it much harder to rebuild the army from scratch. He then asked Melniz if he intended to quit while secretly tying up his leg with a magic chain, and he decided that he wouldn't let Melniz run away before finding out his reason because he knew that he may not be able to catch him again if he escaped. Leo then advised him to be sure to leave with no regrets if he was serious about quitting his job, and he then asked him what was on his mind. However, Melniz responded by pretending to be Nezuko, and some minutes later he finally revealed that he had to conduct interviews by himself in 3 days. He said he'd need to be energetic and imposing during the interviews since he'd be interviewing spies and agents who were supposed to be good at talking. Leo pointed out that Melniz wasn't good at talking and brought up the fact that he was formerly a guild master, causing him to explain that he used to let other people handle the talking back then. Leo realized that he was the one that sent his mouthpieces packing back to the demon realm, and Melniz said he thought he could learn things if he went on a trip and visited lots of places. He then claimed that he didn't need to do that anymore since Leo was around, and then he asked Leo to turn him into a master of communication within the next 3 days. Leo pointed out that communication skills was one of the most important skills to have while working for a team, and he asked Melniz if he'd asked anyone for help so far. Melniz said he didn't want to bother anyone because they were all too busy with their own work, and Leo called him a weirdo for sending a cryptic letter instead of just opening up about his problems. Melniz then tried to run away, but he was held back by Leo's magic chain, and Leo agreed to be his tutor for the next 3 days. Sometime later, Leo, or should I say Onyx, updated Echidna on his arrangement with Melniz and told her not to allow him go on any surprise trips for the time being. As she praised him, the dumb lowly almost let his real name slip again before stopping herself by covering her mouth, and Echidna ignored her while telling Leo that Melniz tried his best to rebuild the demon army despite having troubles of his own. She then informed him that her generals were also her consultants, and said that Melniz's thoughts on humanity often clashed with her own. This made Leo remember when he just defeated Melniz during the war, and Melniz told him that he'd exterminate humanity someday if he didn't unalive him. Leo then asked Echidna how things were going with Edwald, and she revealed that the brute couldn't even commit seppuku because his abs were so strong that they shattered every sword he tried to impale himself with. Leo brought up the fact that he said he couldn't train his troops properly in the letter, and Echidna revealed that she'd assigned his daughter Julieta to keep an eye on him since she was his only weakness. She claimed he'd open up about his reasons when he settled down, and Leo said he'd assist her with Edward's issue when he's done handling the matter with Melniz, causing her to thank him. At a particular diner, rats were cooking up meals while Leo and Melniz served up the food while being dressed up as barmaids. The head chef thanked Leo for boosting her business by improving the quality of their food, and Leo told her that he still had a few more MasterChef techniques he had to show them. She then thanked him for bringing Myrni by and claimed he was a cute silent maiden just like Komi-san. Melniz then asked Leo how cross-dressing as a barmaid would help him improve his communication skills, and Leo explained that he needed to disguise himself because people wouldn't want to be served food by one of the demon generals. When Melniz pointed out that he looked just like the hero, Leo said the demon bums didn't have enough brain cells to remember what he'd looked like during the war, which was different for Melniz, who was like John Wick among demons. Melniz asked why Leo didn't give him one of the male uniforms, and Leo explained that he didn't have his size before teasing him by saying he looked cute in his maid outfit. Leo explained that table service would teach him the basics of communication, and then they were called to serve some of the customers. The head chef told Melniz to smile, but he let out a smile that somehow looked creepier than Hisoka's, so she made fun of him for it. Leo then started to lecture him on communication by using a scenario where he's dining with Echidna and the other generals, and advised him to use empathy while communicating with others. Melniz said empathy was the first thing they asked him to get rid of as an assassin for the guild, and asked Leo for a secret technique. Leo told him to just shut up and listen, causing Melni's to stump his toe, and Leo then explained that listening was also an essential part of communication because it would allow people to open up to him. Just then, some customers started trash-talking Melni's, and he tried to change the subject by offering some food, but one of the ruffians started getting handsy with him. In response, Melni's broke his arm and took out some of his goons with swift assassin moves, causing the rest to apologize. On their way back, Leo commended Melni's for doing a good job, and they later met in his room where Leo told him to conduct a fake interview using the skills he'd learnt. Melni's asked Leo if his previous claim of joining them because he wanted to ruin humanity was a lie. Leo said he's surprised that Melni's was the one asking that question because he thought Shutina would be the first one to ask. Melni's brought up the fact that Leo advised him to see situations from the point of view of people he was trying to communicate with and figure out what they really wanted to say. Melni's then said he'd put himself in Leo's shoes, and by this, he realized that he didn't need the demon generals or Echidna because he had the power to destroy humanity on his own if he wanted. When Melni's asked why he hadn't destroyed humanity yet, Leo still tried to dodge the question. So Melni's threw a piece of iron at him, which he caught before noticing the serious expression on Melni's face. Melni's asked if he felt angry about the fact that he risked his life to fight for humans only to get cast away like a piece of trash, and Melni's then claimed that he wanted all the humans dead. Melni's asked if he'd looked into his past, and Leo said yes before pointing out that he knew he was half human, half demon. During his past years, humans were so frightened of him that his parents sold him into slavery, and he was eventually brought into the Assassin's Guild after being passed around for years. There he got trained in assassin skills, and he secretly aided Echidna's army during their raid of a particular town because he wanted humans to pay for what they did to him. However, Echidna announced to the humans or the city that her intention wasn't to slaughter them, but rather to rebuild their town to use as a base of operations because their main objective was in Renius. Edwald also announced that he'd captured their corrupt mayors, and Lily offered the people of the city food, causing Melni's to feel like he's wasted his precious time in helping the human-loving scumbags. Despite his doubts, he made contact with Echidna and joined her army under false pretenses. One day, he suggested moving to a new town, but Echidna told him they couldn't leave yet because the people of the town were throwing them a party as a way of appreciating their efforts. During the party, Melni's was feeling annoyed by what they were doing, so Shutina told him that the party was part of Echidna's strategy because it offered them a chance to take a break from fighting and reignite the army's motivation for the upcoming tasks by speaking with her one by one. Edwald joined by saying that Echidna was a weird one before revealing that before he joined. The army was an evil force hell-bent in destroying humanity, which was why he refused to join when he was initially asked. Shutina then asked Melni's why he joined the demon army, and he didn't want to tell them that he joined to slaughter humans, so he just said he didn't have a reason. Echidna then thanked him for joining them and said she wanted him to live a peaceful life in the demon world after she redeveloped it using the Philosopher's Stone. Melni's then left to go to bed, and as he walked along, he decided that he'd take out Echidna and lead the demon army himself to destroy humanity if he needed to. After that, he became one of the demon generals and half-heartedly helped its forces through its successful campaign until the hero came along. After Leo defeated him, Melni's said he'd destroy humanity if he didn't end him, and in response, Leo told him to go out and see the world. Melni's claimed that the world had nothing amazing in it, but Leo said he was only seeing it as an assassin. Leo then explained that the world looked different when you're seeing it from your own terms and not just for work before advising him to go seek something in the world he's never seen before. Back in the present, Melni said he didn't care what happened to humanity and tearfully expressed his confusion over the fact that Leo didn't harbor any hatred towards humans despite all the things they did to him. Leo then started pointing out all the things he'd observed about the generals while working with them so far, and said Melni's was an unfeeling assassin who's struggling with teenage angst. He also pointed out that Melniz kept quiet after hearing his reasons for joining the demon army, not because he didn't like him, but because he heard how he'd been exiled by humanity and felt for him from the bottom of his heart. Leo told him to stop crying, so he wiped off his tears and asked Leo to tell his story. Leo admitted that the hateful words humans told him hurt his feelings since he'd been defending humanity for a long time, and he decided to tell Melniz how the world was like when he was born, long, long ago. But when the world was at the height of industrial civilization before magic came into common use, the land was different from how it was in the present because the capital used to be the city of Tokyo. Back then, there used to be rockets, satellites, and the internet, and the world used to be peaceful, as it was made up of only humans. However, one day, a hole opened up in the middle of Tokyo, and out of it came all kinds of demons who started causing chaos and destruction. Humans eventually started fighting back, causing a war to break out between the humans and demons, and eventually humans realized how much weaker they were compared to their foes, so they decided to come up with a powerful weapon that could easily destroy the demons. In light of this, some scientists started a project to create 12 powerful human weapons imbued with demonic powers to protect humanity and named them the Demonheart series. Leo then confessed that he was the only surviving member of the Demonheart series, and he told Melniz about how his entire life was nothing but fighting demons to save humanity. He was made to be extremely durable, so he eventually became the sole survivor after the other Demonhearts died out in battle. He lived until the present time when magic replaced technology and continued to follow his orders of fighting to protect humanity for years despite having doubts about it because he couldn't bring himself to abandon his duty. Leo then confessed that he was happy when humans cast him aside because it gave him a chance to quit being a hero and explore the world instead of being tied down by his heroic responsibilities. He then continued to yap about how he was enjoying working for the demon army until Melniz stopped him and he realized that he'd always wanted to share his story with someone. Leo revealed that he was the one who stopped Echidna's father demon Lord Cyprius from taking over the world before saying that Echidna and her generals were all good people. He then promised that he'd help them find happiness by bringing them the Philosopher's Stone, and Leo told Melniz that he told him his story because he had a crucial communication skill, which was his strong motivation. He then rizzed up the Emo assassin until he passed out on his couch. Sometime later, some demons were digging through some ruins, and they found a huge robotic arm sticking out of a hole in the wall. Elsewhere, Julieta was complaining to Leo about how her dad always assumed everyone was on his level, and Leo told her to calm down for a bit and enjoy some tea with him. Leo then brought up the report she told him earlier about how Edwald put his soldiers through hellish training only for them to get clapped by an arch chimera, and afterwards, he claimed that his men were weak, pathetic idiots before deciding to take responsibility for their failure by taking his own life. He pointed out that dying wouldn't solve their problems, and Julieta said her musclehead father had thankfully abandoned the notion of suicide for the meantime before pointing out that arch chimeras were the strongest chimeras. She also said that the men they hired to face it were mere foot soldiers who had no hope of defeating it with lack of experience or training. Leo then asked why Edwald made the newbies fight against the chimera, and Julieta said it's because he expects everyone to be as strong as him, which was why he thought the new soldiers weren't trying hard enough when they failed to defeat the chimera. Leo pointed out that Edwald was obnoxious enough to think that strong people got to their position by virtue of their own efforts, when in reality, other factors came into play, such as genetics like in the case of Lily, education like Shutina's case, and other external factors that could aid someone in becoming powerful. Julieta asked why her father couldn't understand that. So Leo explained that a good warrior didn't always make up a good teacher, because skilled fighters like Edwald would tend to blame his students for not being serious enough based on the assumption that they're his level instead of properly applying the training methods that got him where he is. Julieta then pointed out that Edwald cursed his lack of training after he lost to Leo and doubled his daily efforts. She then admitted that she's always wanted to be like her dad. However, she claimed that his stubborn nature is working against him as his hellish training is making his troops pass out from exhaustion, and Leo said he's surprised that they don't just run away from the moron. Julieta claimed that they were just as serious about Edwald's cause as he was, which was why they pushed themselves to their limits just to follow his orders, and then she asked Leo what to do about the situation. Leo told her he'd handle it, and she was pleased to hear this. Meanwhile, Melnice told Shutina and Lily about the fact that Leo was a living weapon created to protect humanity, as well as the fact that he was lying about his goal of joining the demon army to destroy the human race. Shutina then decided that they'd trust him while keeping a close eye on him, and Lily gleefully agreed with that idea. At the same time, Leo found a drawing of lilies which gave him an idea, and then a demon told him that he was being summoned by Queen Echidna. When he arrived at the throne room, Echidna informed him that Edwald had quit being a general because he felt he was no longer fit to lead the troops, and when Leo asked if he'd quit the demon army, she said he only demoted himself to a common foot soldier to train with his underlings. Leo was worried because he knew this would only worsen their situation, and Echidna said she told him to rethink his decision, but he refused to back down. Echidna tried to ask Leo for a solution, but she realized how much of a parasite she was becoming, so she stopped herself and decided to find a solution herself. However, Leo asked to handle the situation with Edwald, and he promised to resolve it in no time, so she agreed to leave it in his hands. He started walking away, but she stopped him by telling him that there was an important matter which she wanted to discuss with him when the situation was resolved, and he agreed to see her afterwards. A while later, Lily showed Leo and Julieta the Gundam she found, and Leo explained to them that it was an artifact from the modern age that was more powerful than its rank Chimera. He identified it as a machine golem given the codename Phantom 9, which was built specifically to combat high-ranking demons, and said they'd use it to carry out his plan. Some hours later, Edwald announced to his troops that he was stepping down from his position as general and rejoining them as a foot soldier, causing them to freak out. He then informed them that Julieta would be assuming the role of general from that point onwards, and Leo, who was watching from above while hiding himself with stealth magic, claimed that he was going to teach the moron a lesson. Suddenly, the machine golem appeared, so Edwald ordered his soldiers to attack it. However, the attacks of the soldiers did nothing but shatter their own weapons, and Edwald started barking orders at them to attack it again. However, the machine suddenly stopped and fired a laser beam at them. Leo managed to save them by deflecting the ray using a spell causing it to destroy a nearby mountain, and when it fired another ray at them, Leo deflected it into the sky. Leo started brainstorming about how he'd handle the situation, but Edwald suddenly charged at the machine golem himself. He instinctively dodged a laser blade attack, which the machine swung at him, and Leo finally revealed himself while explaining that the attack was powerful enough to tear through his dragon scales. Leo then told him to follow his orders if he wants to live, and Edwald tried to argue, but the machine stole his attention by blasting off a piece of the dragon scale on his body. Leo kept barking orders at him while calling him a moron for being a clueless idiot, and Edwald explained that he didn't know what to do because he hadn't faced the machine before. Following Leo's instructions, Edwald managed to slice off the machine's blade, and Julieta told him that the weak point of the machine was the torso. Leo told him the same thing, and he managed to take the machine down by striking the torso. Just then, the machine let out a signal which activated the other machine golems in the ruins, and Leo was about to face them. But Echidna informed him that she was already there to face them. Echidna then barbecued the machine golems with a massive flame spell, allowing Leo to give Edwald a taste of his own medicine by insulting him for being incompetent against the golem. Edwald eventually realized the error of his ways, and Julieta defended her dad by preaching about how it wasn't right to assume that others can do what he can. After hearing this, Edwald apologized to his troops for his previous harsh statements, and they all expressed their desire to continue fighting alongside him. Meanwhile, Echidna became a bigger explosion maniac than Megumin as she continuously blasted the already roasted bots with her magic power while the generals tried to stop her. Some days later, Shutina visited Leo in his room and informed him that Queen Echidna would promote him to a leadership role alongside them. However, she brought up the fact that Melnice told them about his past and asked if he really lied about his reasons for joining them. Leo said he'd discuss everything with them later that day, including his reasons, and promised not to betray them. So she agreed. She then told him not to reveal his identity until she said so, and explained that Echidna wouldn't forgive their deception if they didn't thread carefully. She then said that she'd give him a signal when the time was right, and pointed out that the book he was reading, titled Ibrad, the Joiner of Hands, was something Echidna used to read all the time. She then asked Leo if they'd be able to possess the Philosopher's Stone, and he admitted that it wouldn't be easy before promising to make it work with his abilities. Shutina then said she'd send a messenger when they're ready before leaving the room. Some time ago, a demon that looked uglier than Black Clover fans explained to Leo that they weren't the bad guys because they didn't come to destroy humanity, and Leo wasn't buying the imp's words. So he explained that his race were sick of the numerous wars that were going on within the demon world. Leo asked why he came there, and Imp Kun explained that the Demon King's experiments accidentally opened a great spirit portal, which was the hole that connected the human world to the demon world. He said he only decided to come take a look because he'd heard that the human world was far nicer than the demon world, and Leo pointed out that it basically made them illegal immigrants. The imp also explained that they were curious because normally, getting to the human world from the demon world took lots of mana and catalysts to be kept open, and said only a few of them had ever seen the human world with their own eyes before, which was why they wanted to see it. The imp felt that his plot to keep the hero occupied was working, so he continued his story, and when Leo asked if the leaders of the demon world resolved disputes, the imp explained that the Demon King Belil was a trashy ruler because he resolved everything with violence. Leo pointed out that the name Belil was present in the human records, and the imp guessed that Belil's name was in their books because one of the demon royals popped over to the human world back in the day. When the conversation got dull, the imp started panicking, and when he fell to the ground, Leo asked him to get back up so they could take a walk. As they walked through the damaged city, Leo asked the imp why Belil opened the Great Spirit Portal, and the imp explained that the wars fought in the demon world previously were for the limited resources in the realm until Belil opened the Spirit Portal to an uninhabited portion of the human world, causing the demons to start migrating. Leo asked why the portal landed in Tokyo, and the imp said it surprised him as well, before revealing that the demons soon started fighting amongst themselves thanks to the ogres that started attacking humans. Noticing this, the imp tried to leave, but the gate suddenly closed, and this sucked for him because the only beings who could close the Great Spirit Portal were high-tier demons or King Belil himself. He claimed that they'd left them to die in the human world, and Leo asked if there was a possibility that Belil and other high-tier demons would try to colonize the human world. Imp Kun said there was a huge possibility of that because they knew the humans are way weaker than them, and presumed that they probably sent some spies into the human world who returned to the demon realm before the portal closed up. He told Leo about how high-tier demons called devils treated the lower-tier demons like trash, and started ranting about how the demon higher-ups sent him to the human world just to be unalived. He asked Leo to finish him off, but instead, Leo put his sword back inside its sheath and thanked him for all the information. The imp asked Leo why he didn't end him, and Leo said he provided him with valuable information before revealing that he escorted him to the rendezvous point of the containment squadron. Imp Kun said Leo was different from other humans he'd encountered, and he wondered what kind of monster Leo was, as he didn't seem to be human or demon. Leo then told him that he'd ensure the command finds him residence in the Shinjuku Protection Ward, and Imp Man replied that he'd rather return to the demon world. But Leo said they were already closed to the Protection Ward. As they walked through the street, the imp asked Leo what his name was, and in response, Leo stared at him like a lost puppy, causing him to wonder if he had a name. Leo smiled while telling him that he was the first demon to ask his name, and the imp started preaching about how names were important because they're proof that someone existed even after they pass on. However, Leo said his robot brain couldn't compute the imp's yappings, and the imp introduced himself as Ibrad, a proud member of the Dark Valley Imps. Leo introduced himself as well before telling him about how he was part of the Demonheart series who were created to battle demons to protect humanity. When he said it was his sole responsibility to face demons, Ibrad said it was sad, and Leo asked what he meant since he felt no exhaustion from his duties. Ibrad said it wasn't what he meant, and when Leo asked what he meant, he asked what Leo intended to do when the war ended. Leo said he'd stay on standby until he's needed again, and Ibrad felt worried for him because he'd have to live an extra long life without having a purpose. Leo brought up the fact that he'd have a purpose again if another war breaks out, and Ibrad said it means that he's destined to fight wars for all eternity. Hearing this, Leo did a bit of self-reflection before informing him that the other Demonheart series who were much stronger than him would defeat the demon army, which meant that his death was a high probability. Leo assured him that he wouldn't suffer, and Ibrad said he hoped Leo would die before getting too invincible. They eventually met the containment squadron, and Ibrad promised Leo that he'd become a martyr who would unite humans and demons. As Leo asked away, Ibrad advised Leo to find something else to live for and enjoy life when humans eventually dump him, and he told Leo to never forget his name. After he left, Leo decided to keep Ibrad's words to heart even if he didn't fully understand them. In the present, Leo walked to the throne room while thinking of how he finally understood Ibrad's words. Earlier, Echidna stared at a document where she decreed that Dark Knight Onyx's trial period was over and officially appointed him to be the 5th great general of her demon army. She happily signed the document, and she stared at Ibrad's book while thinking of how Onyx was the man most suited to extend a hand to humanity on their behalf. In the present, Echidna was confident that she made the right decision, but before she could do anything, a female demon showed up to inform her that the Great Spirit Portal was closing up. She asked if they knew why it was happening, and the demon said no before telling her that they were running low on the rare crystal catalysts that keep it open. Leo and Shutina immediately started applying magic to it, and Echidna couldn't believe that something catastrophic was happening just when she started to feel that their future was secure. A while later, Echidna informed the demon generals that they were in a state of crisis before revealing that the portal was stable for the meantime thanks to herself, Shutina, and Onyx. She said it would stay open for the next 7 days maximum, and Lily asked what would happen if the spirit portal closes up. Echidna said they wouldn't be able to return to the demon world before elaborating that once it closes, they had no idea how long it would be before another is opened for them to bring troops through. She pointed out that it could take centuries of even a millennia, and during that time the demon world would continue to suffer, and said they needed to decide their next plans within the next 7 days. When she asked for Shutina's opinion, Shutina said they had 2 options. The first of which was to return to the demon world before the portal closes, and she pointed out that their army consisted mostly denizens of the human world, implying that they'd have to disband the army since they couldn't bring them along. Edwald pointed out that they, the generals, would have to split up as well, and Lily immediately opposed the idea because she didn't want to be separated from her friends. When Melnies asked what the second option was, she said it was to immediately mobilize their army and attack Renales so they could take the Philosopher's Stone for themselves. The generals agreed that it was out of option, and Shutina pointed out that their army was far weaker than before, meaning their bloody corpses would get spread on the battlefield like pizza toppings if they went into battle. Echidna then asked Onyx if he'd ever fought Leo, and he replied that he's only heard stories about him. Echidna admitted that she got clapped despite fighting him at her full power before stating that he's a monster who would wipe out their entire troops if they faced him as they were. She then said she didn't fear death because she left the demon world knowing that she could die there, but she claimed that she's not willing to lead others into the same fate. She made the decision to disband their army and return to the demon world. Echidna claimed that she and Shutina must return as the demon world's leader and second in command, before pointing out that returning without the Philosopher's Stone would inevitably lead to conflict over the throne. Echidna walked to the window to hide her tears as she thanked everyone for staying by her side for so long, and she decided to look strong as a queen. So she told them that they'll need to find a new way to save the demon world. Leo brought up the words she told him when she was drunk about how she intended to better the lives of her people, and in response, she claimed that she'd use the stone to bring all the blessings which the human world has enjoyed to the demon world. She revealed that she'd studied and trained for the sake of that plan ever since she was a demon lowly, all to become the demon queen, so she can travel to the human world to make it happen. Hearing this, Leo took off his helmet and told her that the stone isn't an all-powerful wish-granting device, but rather an advanced engine from the mechanical age that uses a micro-black hole to produce nigh unlimited energy, and he added that there was no guarantee that it would grant her wishes. He presumed that a detailed manual on how to operate it was hidden somewhere in the human world, and said humans were looking for it too, but the antiquity had made it tough to find. Echidna started thinking up plans to make her dream come true, and just when she was about to give up, Leo walked in behind her and told her there were 2 Philosopher's Stones in the human world. Leo then asked her to look at him, and when she did, he explained that he ditched his disguise because the situation was dire. He then switched to his normal clothes before apologizing for tricking her, and he revealed that his real reason for joining the demon army was to see if Echidna was worthy of a Philosopher's Stone. He said he'd have left if he deemed Echidna unworthy, and then claimed that he found out how worthy she was during the dinner they shared. The pea-brained queen still couldn't wrap her head around the fact that her darling Onyx was her greatest rival, but he went further to tell her that giving her the stone would be worth it because it would bring peace to both realms. She got so overwhelmed by the reality in front of her that she didn't even let Leo finish telling her where the other Philosopher's Stone was before blasting him to hell with a flame attack. Afterwards, Echidna was still determined to violently lash out at him, but the demon generals talked her out of it by reminding her of all the good he's done for the demon army. Echidna then asked where the other Philosopher's Stone was, and he said it was on Seashat Mountains before revealing that it was protected by a powerful guardian. Together they walked through the mountains, and when Echidna asked Leo why he didn't just teleport them to the location, he said he wanted to talk to her. He told her about how she needed to find the manual to make the stone work, and she swore to him that she'd unite the demons and humans. He revealed that he was born in the mechanical age, and she was stunned because she knew it made him over 3,000 years old. He then told her about his identity as part of the Demon Heart series and said his ability was to copy all abilities used against him. He told her he at times feared that he'd eventually bring disaster upon the world just so he can be the one to save it, and he revealed to Echidna and her generals that the Philosopher's Stone was his heart before telling them to take it by unaliving him. They started hesitating, so he fully assumed the role of a villain while threatening to destroy every human he could find if they ran away. Echidna watched in shock as Leo did his best Aizen impression while making villain speech, and he created a shockwave with his sword before telling the gang that they'd have to stop him if they wanted to save the world. Echidna and the demon generals were frozen in shock. But Leo didn't even give Echidna a chance to ask what he was doing before charging at her with his sword. He spammed sword attacks at her, but she blocked continuously until the force of his sword pushed her into the ground. She asked if he'd lost his mind, and Leo replied that he's perfectly sane because he was there to fulfill his duty of saving the world. He then blasted his sword on the ground, creating a shockwave which Echidna barely managed to dodge, and when it destroyed a rock that was behind her. Edwald was shocked that a single swing generated that much power. Leo said he'd lose his identity and didn't need him, and claimed that he'd save the world even if he had to destroy it first. He then fired a slash attack at Lily which she dodged, and Echidna asked why he'd want to destroy the very thing he was sent to protect when all he'd be creating is a wasteland. Leo said he was satisfied with that because he'd protected the world long enough, and then started laughing like a cartoon villain. He then said erasing everything and starting from scratch sounded pretty good before blasting a shockwave which pushed Echidna to the floor. He tried to finish her off with a heavy sword strike, but Edwald blocked with his sword and pushed Leo away. Leo then clashed swords with him while trying to use Talk no Jutsu to bring him back to his senses, and Shutina asked him why they had to fight. Leo angrily asked the stupid generals if they hadn't been listening to him before using an enhancement spell on his sword to push Edwald back. Before he could finish Edwald off, Shutina stopped him with a cage spell, and she tried to completely enclose him in the spell, but Leo tore through it and sent Edwald flying with a kick. Leo then yelled at Shutina for using a binding spell on him by telling her that she'd have to unalive him if she wanted his heart, and she asked why he helped them this whole time if his heart was really the Philosopher's Stone. She brought up the fact that he promised not to betray them and asked if he was ever friends with them at all. All Leo had to say in response was that they'd all die if they didn't end him before firing a barrage of light arrow attacks at Shutina. Edwald tanked the arrows with his back, but then they exploded and Leo tried to follow up with a sword attack, but Echidna blocked him off. Edwald dropped to his knees with his back looking like barbecue chicken, and Shutina realized that Leo was really trying to unalive them. As Leo clashed swords with Echidna, he admitted that he's sick of his role of being humanity's guardian, and he asked them who he should hate between the humans who created him and the demons who forced their hand. He then created a massive barrage of light arrows which covered the skies above them, while claiming that he'd destroy both the human and the demon world, and he released the arrows on them. Echidna and Shutina managed to protect the team using magic shields, and the Demon Queen wondered if this was Leo's true strength. She realized that she couldn't fight him in her current state, but also remembered the fact that her mana core hadn't fully recovered from their last battle. She then decided to use a particular powerful spell which she knew was a gamble, but she wasn't sure it would work. Lily then started begging Leo to stop, and she brought up how he gave her good advice during their trip to Largo before claiming that it was her turn to repay the favor. She said she'd listened to his problems before asking him to stop fighting, and Leo acted like her words got through to him before claiming that they were all cannon fodders. He then stabbed Lily with light blades, and this got Echidna so enraged that she charged at him with her full might. And Shutina blasted Leo with a powerful lightning spell, causing him to be happy that they finally got serious with him. Echidna and Shutina were surprised that that high-level spell had no effect on him, and with a mischievous smile, Leo told them to come at him with every last fiber of their being. Hearing this, Edwald got back on his feet and thanked Leo for reaching him to understand the weaknesses in those around him before claiming that he still saw him as a friend. Edwald then charged at him in his full dragon mode while saying that it was his duty to cut Leo down for straying from his path. However, Leo blocked his attacks before freezing his sword with an ice spell, and he followed up by blasting a flame spell directly at him. As Edwald screamed in pain, Leo explained that his dragon scales were deemed useless because they were being destroyed by rapid change in temperature, and then he kicked the brute into the wall. Echidna charged at Leo with her axe, but he blocked the attack and Shutina covered him with an earth attack, allowing Echidna to fire her signature flame attack at him. However, their combo attack did 0 damage to him, and Echidna realized that Leo's defenses grew stronger with every attack that hit him. He walked towards Echidna to finish her off, but Melniz entered the battlefield by swiftly slashing him in the neck. Melniz started clashing blades with Leo, and when Leo claimed that he was determined to destroy the world, Melniz called him a liar while using an assassination technique to run into the sky. Leo chased after him, and they fought in the air while Melniz preached to him, and Melniz tried to finish him off with an attack from behind, but he automatically got turned into an ice sculpture when his blade got close to Leo. Lily tearfully charged at him in her Fenrir form while claiming that she was trying to stop him because she loved him, but he Pikacha'd the lights out of her. Seeing this, Echidna realized that she had no choice but to use her domain expansion, and she asked Shutina to buy her 42 seconds to prepare the attack. Echidna then started casting a spell which her father Cycrius passed on to her, which was designed for the sole purpose of defeating the hero, while Shutina clashed spells with Leo. When Leo walked up to Shutina off, she pointed out that his plan was to play the villain and have them finish him off so that the Philosopher's Stone would be passed on to them and both races would be able to unite once and for all. Leo stopped her preaching by punching her in the gut, but before he could finish her off, Echidna fired a hero binding spell called Anti-Leo directly at him, which had the power to disable all of his abilities for a brief moment. As the spell approached Leo, Echidna feared that he'd dodge it, meaning that she'd have failed the generals and all of her people. But Leo smiled while waiting for the spell to hit him. Leo remembered how he was given the orders to protect humanity right from the second he woke up for the first time, and he was initially fine with slaying demons because the current world suited his needs. The people needed what he had to offer, and he also had comrades which he fought alongside. Together they defeated powerful foes and brought peace to the world, causing him to celebrate. However, the peace stretched on until the world found itself without need for a hero, and he no longer had a reason to exist. When war broke out again, Leo jumped into action and he fought tirelessly before realizing that he only had a place in the world when he was fighting. He traveled the world fighting endlessly for thousands of years, and his ability allowed him to gain new techniques from every enemy he fought until eventually, nothing was a match for him. He has become what his creators wanted him to become, which was an unstoppable and immortal bioweapon. Once again, a long peace took hold, and when a lady merchant told Leo that she wished for the peace to last, he maintained a stoic expression while wondering why he couldn't bring himself to smile. Eventually, he realized that there was a part of him that wanted the world to be in danger, and he wanted every life form on the planet to be in danger so he could save the world. He prayed for more danger and chaos to come to the world because he was scared that he'd lose himself if he didn't get to save the world, and eventually he realized that he could just plunge the world into peril by himself. He remembered that the Demon Heart series had a feature that prevented them from bringing harm to humanity, and it was named thought masking because it prevented them from thinking harmful thoughts. However, developing a sense of self and growing an ego had disabled it for him. So he used some science equipment to make the heroes the same as they were when they first saved humanity. The Leo prototype he created asked for orders, so he told him to destroy all of humanity so he could save it, and Leo realized that he still wanted to live as the hero. Sometime later, the guards of the kingdom raised an alarm over the fact that demons were attacking, and when Leo asked for details, the guard informed him that a huge portal opened up in the Seshat Mountains, from which demons were pouring through. Leo told the man that he'd handle it, but then he started questioning himself. So he went back to his lab and destroyed the Demon Heart copies he created. He realized that he's no longer a hero since he was trying to destroy humanity with his own hands, and he claimed that he was the real Demon King. Leo figured out that he was the greatest threat to the world because he was willing to destroy the world for his own selfish cause, and claimed that no Demon King could ever be as evil as he was. This internal turmoil became really intense, and he came up with a plan. Soon after, he was sent off on a mission to defeat Echidna and her army. As he fought them off, he realized that he had to quit heroing in order to defeat evil, but he couldn't just be defeated. So he decided to pass on the Philosopher's Stone to someone strong enough to defeat him so they could defend humanity in his stead. That was when he spotted Echidna ordering her demon troops to avoid all destructive actions, including unaliving humans, and she reminded them that their main goal was not to wage war. Leo was surprised by this, so he interrogated a demon, and the demon revealed that Echidna invaded the human world because she wants to make the demon world a better place. He stated that there has never been a demon king like her, and another demon he interrogated claimed that she's never met a woman as deserving of praise as her because she forbade them from doing unjust harm to humans in the course of their invasion. She also pointed out that Echidna stood on the front lines to lead them into battle, and an imp he interrogated claimed that Echidna handed out praise to everyone, including imps like himself, which made her a kind ruler. After hearing all their testimonies, Leo sent an orb eye to observe Echidna. and after he saw the recordings, he realized that Echidna could be the successor he'd been looking for. He figured out that he could do more than just taking his heart by bridging the gap between the human and demon realms. He decided to give her an interview before leaving to save the world. On that day, Leo began his final journey, which was a journey to stop heroing by ending himself. While facing off against the 4 generals, he assessed them to see if they were trustworthy, and after defeating them, he entered the palace room where he clapped every guard in sight before facing off against Echidna. He clashed swords with her while deciding that he'd determine if she was the right person to entrust his life to, and then he defeated her monster form to end the war. In the present, Leo smiled while thanking Echidna as the anti-Leo spell approached him, and she realized that it was what he wanted all along. Echidna's body felt every bone in her body straining as the bonding spell held Leo in place. As blood started spewing from her eyes, Echidna realized that her body couldn't handle it because she was binding thousands of years of power all by herself, and she realized that it was her only chance to take him down since she could only hold him for 6 more seconds. Leo realized that he hadn't been in this much danger for centuries, as he was now frozen in place without access to his millions of abilities, and he smiled because he knew he was finally about to die. Echidna realized that Leo had lived a miserable life for thousands of years, and Leo felt that he'd failed as a hero because he couldn't rely on others to protect the world alongside him. They both remembered how he spent time with the army as Onyx, and both of them realized that Leo's wish was to find someone who'll save him. Leo was glad that he chose Echidna and her gang to be his final companions because he knew that the worlds will unite after his passing. Just then, the demon generals got back on their feet, and Leo realized that he didn't want to die. Echidna then claimed that she'd give Leo a hero's death before ordering her generals to finish him off. All 4 generals hit Leo with their best shot, and Leo thanked all of them before finally collapsing to the ground. Afterwards, the generals stared at Leo's body with a mix of shock and sorrow in their eyes, and Echidna screamed dramatically to mark the end of their battle. Some minutes later, Leo woke up, and he started relishing in his defeat when Echidna and her generals approached him. Lily tried to cuddle him as usual, but Melnice held her back, and Echidna asked Leo if he enjoyed playing the role of a Walmart demon lord. Leo said it was pretty fun and confessed that he'd always wanted to be the villain before saying that he was glad he got to do it with Echidna. Echidna accused him of going easy on them, and when he tried to deny it, she brought up the fact that he let her spell haunt him on purpose. Leo asked if he should have dodged it before pointing out that they were losing pretty badly. Shutina said he came there expecting to lose to them, and Leo said he was glad, because even though his plan didn't entirely come to fruition, they managed to disable him before he unalived everyone. Echidna then called him a bloody fool while pointing out that his silly game nearly took their lives, and Leo simply smiled at her in response. Leo then offered them the Philosopher's Stone inside his chest and revealed that he'd used an emergency override to cut himself off from the stone's energy, which meant that they had only 300 seconds to take it. Melnice asked if all they needed to do was pull it out, and Leo said yes before disclosing that it would feel like popping a cap off a bottle. Melnice walked forward to pull it out, but Lily started begging on Leo's behalf. However, Edwald held her back and told her to stop making a fuss since Echidna wasn't well. Lily started bawling her eyes out, and Echidna noticed that Leo was smiling because he was still protecting humanity until the very end. She realized that he never intended to unalive anyone or destroy their worlds, and he willingly made the choice to die because he knew his sacrifice would bring peace to both worlds. She painfully admitted to herself that he was a true hero, and when he reminded her that the clock was ticking, she asked if he had any regrets. Leo said he had none since someone worthy was picking up his work, and Melnice tried to shut Lily up, but his teary eyes only made her cry even louder. Leo then apologized to them for all the trouble he'd caused, and Echidna sat beside him to collect the stone. However, she gave him a light smack on the face and stomped him in the gut before saying that she'd changed her mind because it was too much work. Echidna then reminded him that she was the Demon Queen and said she had no time for his errands before telling Leo that she's officially decided to hire him. She brought up the fact that he possessed the stone and also the fact that he'd loved for thousands of years before appointing him as ambassador between the demon and human worlds. Leo tried to remind her that time was running out, but Echidna said she didn't care and Edwald said he expected no less from the queen. Leo told Edwald to talk some sense into her or take out the stone himself, but the musclehead said he agrees with Echidna's decision. He went even further to say he wanted to learn a lot more from Leo and pointed out that his death would be a great disservice to him. Leo was surprised by how stupid he was, and Edwald told him he was the best man to unite their world since he'd lived for thousands of years. He also said Julieta had taken a liking to Leo, which meant that unaliving him would make his daughter cry, and then he begged Leo to reconsider his decision. Leo asked if his thick skull was really that empty and Lily immediately jumped on top of him. She chewed him out for not asking for their help when he was in trouble before reminding him of his lesson to her about the power of friendship. Lily then started crying on top of him while admitting that she was too stupid to know why he wanted to die, and she said she'd hear him out before begging him not to die on her. Melnies then walked towards Leo, and Leo thought he was the perfect man for the job since he was the resident cool-headed assassin. But Melnies suddenly started kicking him. Melnies claimed that Leo's words, attitude, eyes, and everything was screaming that he wanted to live, and started kicking him while begging him to live. Leo then tried to beg Shutina to end him, but Shutina pointed her staff at him before asking him to tell her why he wanted to destroy himself. Leo tried to explain that he didn't have time, but she told him to cut the nonsense. So he told her that he was trying to protect humanity, which was the reason he was built. He also revealed that the Demon Heart series were given thought masking, which prevented them from having any hurtful feelings towards humans, and told them that the ego he developed turned off his thought masking. He claimed that he couldn't hold on to his identity if he didn't protect humanity, and he tried to explain forget, but Shutina interrupted him by pointing out that his strong ego could allow him to disable his order to protect humanity. He said it was impossible, but she ordered him to try it immediately. Leo then went into the world of his subconscious and managed to stop the voice in his head, which was constantly telling him to protect humanity. Leo was stunned by his accomplishment, and Echidna pointed out that there were 20 seconds left on the clock before telling him that she'd unalive him if he really wanted to die. She then advised him not to waste his life being trapped by someone else's orders if he wanted to live, and this made him remember Ibrad's words. As his injury closed up, she told him to leave the mantle of hero behind and work under her. Leo took her hand and got back to his feet, causing Lily to hug him while crying tears of joy. The next day, Leo met up with Echidna, who asked him if he regretted not taking his one chance to finally die, and Leo promised to make her wish come true by finding a way for humanity and demons to coexist. Just then, several demons showed up to inform Echidna and her generals of the different problems in the kingdom, so they all left to carry out their duties. So which demon baddie do you think Leo will crack first now that he has free will? Echidna, Shutina, Lily, or maybe even Melnies? Let us know in the comments. That's all for today's video. If you like anime recaps like this, check out this video here.